Tim again, CEO of Galactic Fire Studios. Yeah, I apologize. I actually was almost done with this tutorial as I was making it, but then for some reason Bandicam decided to go ahead and crash on me. So I'm going to be starting over again. So some of these things are already going to be done, and I'll walk you through them again about what we did and why we did it. So with that in mind, bear with me, okay? So one of the first things that we did is because again I kind of mentioned that we're going to be leaning more towards kind of like an anime style. So go ahead and open up the marketplace. We want to dress up our projectile a little bit, okay? And go to free and permanently free collection. And on the third page, there's going to be the FX variety pack from Khaki, okay? Go ahead and download that and add it to our project. As I've mentioned, I've already done that, so I won't be doing that again. So go ahead and add it to your project. And once it's added to your project, um, as I've kind of mentioned, I like to keep my project tidy. So that variety pack's probably showing up somewhere right here for you. What I did is I went into my blueprints, or rather my base folder, and I went ahead and I made an uh, VFX folder. So go ahead and move Khaki's things into there, okay? All right, so then what I did is in the particles, you're going to have a shockwave particle, okay? And in shockwave, I went ahead and I duplicated that, all right? And opened it up. And this is the old Cascade. This is not Niagara. So what I did here on Flare, you're going to go to the initial color, and I changed it. And these may be collapsed when you first open it, so go ahead and open them up. And I changed the constants to a blue color, okay? And then the same with air. So you come here to air, initial color. Once again, this may be collapsed on start color. So go ahead and open that, and then I made that also a blue color, okay? And then what we did from there is we go back to blueprints, and I made a projectiles folder. So go ahead and make a projectiles folder. And then what we did is we're going to start with the parent class, okay? It's going to be a class that doesn't have a lot of cosmetics or anything like that in it, but this is going to hold the functionality for us to create more children that we can dress up and add more things to and different functionalities if we wanted to, okay? So go ahead and do a blueprint class, actor, and then go ahead and just name it BP projectile class, okay? The next thing we did, we're going to go to settings, we're going to go to project settings, and then under engine, you're going to go to collision, ready? And you'll have object channels and trace channels, okay? We want to make a new object for our projectiles, okay? So hit new object channel, and by default, it's going to block, which that's what we want. We want it to block everything. And just name it projectile. Okay, so then we're going to come to our projectile base. And once in your base, what you're going to do is you're going to add a sphere collision. Alrighty. Then you're going to add a particle system and make sure that's attached to your sphere collision. And make sure it's not a Niagara particle system. Make sure it's just a regular Cascade. Alrighty, and then we're going to add the projectile movement component. Okay, so once you're there, we're going to do some basic setup to make sure that our projectile is ignoring and is ignoring our player, so it's not hitting the person who spawned it. Okay, so we're going to go to our sphere collision, and under object type, make sure that it is set to projectile, and make sure that it's going to ignore your visibility and your camera channels as far as trace channels, but it should be colliding with everything else, so block everything else, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to get the instigator, and then we're going to set the instigator as the owner. For some reason, I don't know if it's a bug or something's going on, usually set owner because this is used for network replication. The tooltip even tells us so. Usually get owner could have been used for all this, but for some reason it wasn't working. So I used instigator instead. And maybe this go around, it'll sort itself out, but it's kind of interesting as to why that wasn't working. I'm not quite sure. But we'll leave get owner here momentarily because we will use that. Alrighty. So the next thing that we want to do to make sure that everybody can see um, our projectile when it hits something, we want everybody to see our hit effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to add custom event. We call it MC spawn emitter. Okay. Then we're going to get spawn emitter at location. Okay. And we'll go ahead and hook all of that up. Okay. And what we'll do here is make sure that it is multicast. And it does not have to be reliable. Um, I don't necessarily care if people actually do end up seeing it. If it has to be skipped because we needed to calculate somebody's damage or something like that, I would be more than okay with that, with it being skipped for that. Okay. Now there's a couple other things that I'd like to do. Okay, so depending on what was spawned, so for example, let's go back to our particles and let's go here to our shockwave. So the flare in the initial color, the flare had a name here. So and it had a parameter name, which is color. Okay, so we want to expose that. We want to be able to change that. So let's set parameter, and it's going to end up being and I will double check this because it looks like a vector, but it could very well be um, not a vector. So we'll call it colored. Yeah, let's promote this to a variable. Shockwave, we'll call this a shockwave color. Okay. Go ahead and expose that. Alrighty. So in the gameplay, we want that shockwave to be the first thing that shows up. Okay. So what we're going to do is for our owner, I want to try to avoid casting. So you can try something like this. Get component by class. And we want its skeletal mesh component. And we want the socket location. Okay, we'll get our muzzle. So, spawn, MC spawn, emitter, and we're going to get that as our location. We need to set the scale to 1, make sure I will auto destroy it, auto release it, auto activate it. Okay, and let's promote this to a variable because once we make our children classes, we may not even have to open up this blueprint to change these type of things. So, okay, so that's our shockwave there. And let's get the actor rotation. Yeah, we'll plug that in there. Okay. We could have got the muzzle rotation, but sometimes the muzzle rotation is a little funky and doesn't work the way that you think it should. Okay. Alrighty. So now what we need to do is we need, with the collision of the sphere, let's make a hit event. Okay. So let's get instigator, and we want to make sure this isn't, they are not equal, because we don't want it hitting our player. So as long as it's not equal, what we're going to do is we're going to break this into it. And let's check to see if it's a character. So when we do cast, if we cast to the lowest possible, which there is another step below this, which is a pawn, but we want to make sure it's a character. So when we cast to the character, um, we're using a lot less memory overhead because there's not much into the character blueprint besides, um, all the cosmetic stuff is stripped down out of there. So you're only going to have kind of what we have here, kind of you'll have the capsule collision, some of the other things that are in there. But you're not loading all of the children. So say for instance I loaded a child. Now you're going to load a lot more with it, eventually down back to its base. So the lower we go in our casting hierarchy, and your character's already in your memory anyways. So honestly, when you cast to a character, because it's already here, there's not that much overhead. It's already loaded into the map and everything like that and in your memory. So, but we'll try to do best practices as best as we can as we're going along. Okay. So, what we're going to do is, I'm lazy, so let's just copy and paste the spawn emitter. And we're going to promote this to a variable again, and this is the hit emitter. So this is when you hit a player. And that's going to be at your impact point. And we don't care about rotation there. And then we're going to apply point damage. 25 damage. Damage actor. We'll make sure we come up with the character. Hit direction, impact point, hit info. It's the hit result there. Damage causer itself, and damage instigator. It is get instigator controller. We want to know who's controlling. To an extent, that almost doesn't make sense, but we'll ignore that for now. Okay, and destroy actor. So we want to destroy the projectile after it hits that. So then, let's go ahead and copy and paste this again. If it wasn't a character that we hit, we can assume it was everything else. And we still want that emitter to spawn. And we still want it to destroy afterwards. Okay. We do that. So for all intents and purposes, the parent class is pretty much done. So let's browser to it. And let's make a child. And we'll call it BP Waterball. Okay, let's go ahead and open that up. Okay, so here's our particle system. Let's change that to the particle system water ball that we had there already. And our sphere, let's bump that size up a little bit. Yeah, about 63. Okay. Initial speed, I'm gonna make it 3,000. I'm going to take gravity off because I want it to just go straight. So then we're not seeing our variables that we set. So let's show inherited variables. Okay. So for our shockwave, we want to make sure that we get that blue shockwave. And we did something that's a little redundant that I'll talk about in just a moment. And then for the hit emitter, water ball hit. Okay. So we did something that was a little redundant. We made our own blue shockwave when we could have just called that regular shockwave and then just changed its color with this. That's what we should have done. We'll see how that turns out. Alrighty, so last thing we need to do is we need to make sure the character can actually even shoot this thing. So let's go back to our third person character. Alrighty, and we are going to go into and make our own custom event. So server, add custom event. server spawn, and we'll just say spawn actor. We can reuse this for other things. Okay, we're gonna run on server. We want this to be reliable. We want this to always happen. Then we're gonna spawn actor from class. All right, what class are we? What's our transform? What kind of collision do we have? Who's our instigator? And who's our owner? You know, all that stuff. It's important. Alrighty. And our shoot transform, let's go in here. And we're actually going to get rid of line trace by damage. You served your purpose well, good sir. But we no longer need you. Okay? And now we're going to turn this into a pure function. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spawn actor. And our server spawn actor. Let's promote this to a variable. We'll call it projectile. And let's make a new category. Now the reason why we're going to do that is because eventually we may want different types of projectiles and weapons that the player can get. Water ball. Alright, and this is where all that stuff comes into play. If we don't designate these, then it doesn't know who the owner is to set as the owner, or it doesn't know who the instigator is to set as the owner. It doesn't know who the owner is to get these components from. So this is how this all plays in the multiplayer. So get owner. So who's the owner of that? And get instigator. Okay, let's see what this looks like. We'll try with just. Well, let's try with both. It's the moment of truth. Am I crazy or oh look at that? Oh, is it gonna hit? No, it didn't hit. Is it showing up on the client? No, it's not. What are we doing? What's going on? All right, let's go back to water ball, and I can tell you exactly what's going on. We're gonna go to class defaults. We're gonna replicate movement, and we're gonna replicate back in the parent class. We're not actually replicating anything to anybody, so nobody can see anybody doing anything. So let's try this again. Bam. Okay, we got something. Did you see everything? Okay, it saw the shockwave. Does it see it hit? Does it hit? It's not seeing it hit. What's going on there? Why are we not seeing it hit? Okay, so let's go back to our sphere. And then maybe I'll tell you why. It may actually be this. No, this is blocking everything too. That's very interesting. We set it up to fit hits. Very, very interesting. Let's try one thing. Let's make the sphere the scene root. Okay, let's try it. Let's try this from the client. Okay, the client is hitting and destroying things. But the server there we go. Alright, for some reason it not being the scene root was the cause of it, but why are we going so slow? We are 3,000. Oh, it's 300. That's why we're going so slow. 3,000. We want 3,000. We need to be moving. You're not going to hit anybody with that slow ass projectile. Alrighty. And I think good. Let's try it again. There we go. All right, now we're cooking. Can I hurt you? Uh oh. Yeah. Alrighty. So there we go. Um, I'm not quite sure why it's spawning two of those, but we'll get to that. We'll fix that. But we got a good base going on here. I like what's happening, and I hope you guys do too. So that being said, that's it for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll get to doing some more cool stuff here shortly. Thank you.